We're here to talk about the MTA, big surprise, and specifically this idea that the MTA needs more money, that the MTA needs maybe another payroll tax, or we need to revisit or bring back the payroll tax to help fund the MTA. Now, as someone who represents our conference very proudly, but as someone who admittedly does not live in the MTA region, in all my years in the Senate, all I've heard is the MTA needs more money. And whatever we've done, it's never, ever been enough. And we know there just is rampant waste, fraud, and abuse in the MTA. If there's a place that could use a efficiency department, or if there's a place that could use an audit, it is the MTA. That has never been done. In fact, many of my Democratic colleagues have been resistant. They've defended just giving the MTA more money. Congestion pricing, right? That was going to solve the MTA problem. Now maybe it's a payroll tax. What we're here to say today, and you're going to hear from my colleagues on this, is that the MTA does not need more money. The MTA does not need, New Yorkers do not need another payroll tax. Our businesses on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley and in New York City do not need to be taxed further to finance maybe the worst, most poorly run, inefficient transit authority in the country, certainly. And it should be the exact opposite. We should have the best. The MTA should be the envy of every transportation authority in the country. I would even say maybe the world. And it's far from that. Far from that. It's not safe. It's not on time. It is a disaster. It is an absolute disaster. And the idea that we're going to tell New Yorkers to keep paying more and they're getting less. That seems to be a Democrat mantra here in New York. We're going to charge you more, we're going to give you less, and you're going to be happy about it. But New Yorkers are not happy about it. And so my colleagues from Long Island, from New York City, from the Hudson Valley, they're all here behind me to let their constituents know that they're fighting for them, that they're fighting to not spend more of their tax dollars into the black pit that is the MTA, to not pursue or look at a payroll tax, another tax on businesses that already pay some of the highest taxes. If you're a business on Long Island in the city, you're already paying some of the highest taxes anywhere in the country. And these are employers we want to keep here, and we want them to hire more people, not spend more money on an absolute hellscape that is the MTA. And so we want to be out in front, our colleagues want to be out in front to say, no more taxes, no more payroll tax. If you're going to do anything with the MTA, let's do an audit. Let's find out where the money is currently going, and let's find out what the MTA really needs and how it can be run efficiently and how it can become the best transit authority in the country. That's what New Yorkers deserve. That's what New Yorkers should get for their money, and that's what this conference continues to fight for. So with that, I want to call up Senator Dean Murray, who has been outspoken and in front on this, and he's going to go through the run of show and the rest of our colleagues who are here. But I want to thank Senator Murray for his advocacy on this, for his leadership on this, and call to the microphone Senator Dean Murray.
Thank you very much, Leader. My name is Dean Murray. I'm a New York State Senator for the 3rd Senate District on Long Island, right in the middle of Long Island, in fact. And we are here today, as the leader said, to send a message to the governor, to the Democrat leaders in the Assembly and in the Senate, and that message is no. Just plain no. If you're thinking about fully implementing and going back to 2009 and fully implementing a new MTA payroll tax on all of our businesses, the answer is no. We're not going to stand for it. You know, there's an old saying that goes something like, those who choose to ignore history are doomed to repeat it. Well, when it comes to the MTA payroll tax, we do not want to repeat its history. About a decade and a half ago, the Democrat majority pushed through the job-killing MTA payroll tax, and in all my years in politics and government, I don't remember ever seeing anything more unpopular to Long Islanders than the MTA payroll tax. But it's not just Long Islanders that don't and didn't want the MTA then and don't want the MTA payroll tax now. So I'd like to bring up my good friend and colleague from the Hudson Valley, Senator Rob Rolison, to talk about how those in the Hudson Valley feel about this terrible tax and the possibility of returning to full implementation of the MTA payroll tax. Senator Rollison?
Thanks, Dean. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Senator Murray. And I can tell you, I was in the Dutchess County Legislature in 2009, and I remember full well how unpopular that was when that was talked about and implemented, and it really affected so many individuals within the Hudson Valley. And, you know, as a conference, I think we've been pretty clear when it comes to funding the MTA, and we certainly fought hard on congestion pricing, and it was paused, and then it was back, and we've always said, you know, just delete it, get rid of it. Now we're hearing about a payroll tax being increased in size and in the area of different businesses. And I would say, I don't know how you can tax businesses any more than you already are without absolutely hindering the job market. And we're trying to get back to better employment opportunities for individuals within our districts, and this is just going to kill that. In the 39th district that I represent, which is 3 counties, half of Dutchess, a little bit of Putnam, and part of Orange, we have 3 lines from the MTA. We have the Harlem line, the Hudson line, and the West of Hudson line, which is run by New Jersey Transit. And Orange County is a transit desert. And they were dealing, and are continuing to deal with, because I guess the cameras haven't been turned off, the effects of congestion pricing on their businesses, because they have to go into Manhattan and south of 61st Street, both as business people and people who are going there for jobs. They work there. They don't have a one-seat option on that side of the river. And, you know, while you can say, we want, as the leader said, the best transit system in the world, we want it in our region because we need to move people back and forth to the New York metropolitan area. The benefits of great transit are just so innumerable because they do everything from employment to tourism, and we're blessed in the Hudson Valley to have that beautiful river that runs right down the center of it, and we want people to come and to enjoy it. But you know, when you look at the way that the MTA is being financed, and we've called and numerous times here in this conference over the years, even long before I got here for a forensic audit, I just think it's unfair to the tax-paying public that they're always on the hook to pay for something that is just so ill-conceived out of the state capitol. We could spend all day talking about that, and we don't have the time for that. But you know what I'm talking about, and I would end with this: is that if the MTA spent more time explaining to people what it costs to run a transit system than just saying you've got to give us more money, this might be a different time for us here in Albany. But it's always about more money for this and more money for that, and we're not really going to explain anything. They're doing a lousy marketing job at the MTA on why this MTA is important to this region, to this state, and what it costs to do it, but they don't want to talk about that. So if they want to continue to talk about giving us more money, we're going to continue to say no. And I want to thank my colleague, Senator Murray, for getting us together from this great region that we all represent to talk about this, and with our other speakers here today who are really going to be able to say, this is why this is a bad idea. It was a bad idea in 2009, and it's a worse idea in 2025. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rollison. You know, to Rob's point, we've been calling for accountability and fiscal responsibility for years and years. When I first got into office in 2010, my first press conference as a state assemblyman was calling for a forensic audit of the MTA, and yet we have not seen it done. I know Senator Martins has a bill calling for an audit. I have a bill calling for an audit. We have been calling for this years and years and years. So when people say, well, if you're not going to do this, what are you going to do? Well, how about taking a step back and doing what we've been calling for all along? Identify where the problems are, identify what is actually needed, not what you tell us you need, because that seems to be an endless amount. Now, listen, I understand for those of you saying, well, wait a minute, the MTA payroll tax is still in place. It is. 20% of those that were hammered with the original implementation back in 2009 are still paying it, unfortunately. And on July 1st of 2023, just a couple of years ago, it was changed again. In fact, the businesses still paying the payroll tax in New York City's 5 boroughs got hit with an increase of the MTA payroll tax. But as usual, it looks like Governor Hochul and the Democrat leaders will likely be coming for more. So to talk about the impact to the city taxpayers and the city businesses, I'd like to bring up the newest member of our Senate Republican Conference from Brooklyn, Senator Stephen Chan. Senator?
Thank you, Senator Murray. Hi, my name is Senator Steve Chan from South Brooklyn. I represent about 350,000 people in the borough of South Brooklyn. South Brooklyn has a special attitude. And during my campaign, my short time here, I promised to bring everybody's South Brooklyn attitude up here. And our attitude is we're not beating around the bush. That's all there is to it. In my short time in Albany, every time I hear our governor say, we're going to put more money in your pocket, to me, that sounds like, oh boy, here we go again. She's going to pick my pocket clean. And that's exactly how South Brooklyn feels about this, our business owners, our hardworking families. And the reality is, every time she says this, we're getting fleeced. And this time, the MTA needs more money, and as our earlier spoken senator said, our MTA has never been audited. I'll bet you that if we do audit them, we'll find some shockingly incredible compensation for our executives, some shocking spending somewhere that is absolute nonsense. How do we fund this MTA money pit? All we hear, every sentence includes the words tax, fees. The words that I never hear included in those sentences of how to fund the MTA is make the people pay their fares. I never hear those words. Now, that's not included that. So now we hear chatter about the MTA payroll tax, and we're chasing away more businesses. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a hearing, budget hearing, economic development. Gee, I didn't know attracting businesses to New York entails increasing their payroll taxes. We are doing absolutely nothing to keep our businesses here or attract new businesses. We're not creating jobs. All we're doing is chasing our tax base away, whether that's a corporation, a small, medium, or a large company, or a taxpayer, a working taxpayer. So they're leaving in New York in droves. The outbound traffic is incredible. It's horrendous. Governor, stop with the wasteful spending. We don't need to spend billions and billions on other people's problems, such as the migrants. Let's think of better ways to turn the MTA around, starting from the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And Senator Chan brought up the toll and fare evasion. Last year alone, we lost almost $800 million to toll and fare evasion. Over the past 5 years, if you added up what we've lost, it's over $3.5 billion. So some are saying, well, we haven't really heard that they're putting any MTA payroll tax in a budget. No, it's more of a whisper campaign right now, and we're hearing different options. So I'm going to give you 4 possible options we may be hit with. First would be increase the rates to those in the 7 counties in Zone 2, which is outside of the city. As I said, 2 years ago, they increased the rates to those in Zone 1 in New York City. They could balance that and bring it outside as well. Our answer, no. Another option, it would be another increase in the rate to New York City businesses. Well, you just hit them with an increase 2 years ago. So our answer to that, no. The other option, return full implementation of the MTA payroll tax to those in the city. You just hit them with an increase. It wouldn't be fair at all. Our answer, no. And finally, the worst case scenario, return to full implementation. Basically go back, turn the clock back to 2009 and hit everyone in the 12-county MTA region with a new increased MTA payroll tax. Our answer to that, hell no. Any one of these options is unacceptable because it's a job-killing tax that frankly punishes businesses and affects everyone. Now with us today, we have a few leaders in the business community to talk about the impact the MTA payroll tax had before and will have if increased again to New York's businesses. First, I'd like to call up Ashley Ranslow with NFIB. Ashley.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Ashley Ranslow. I'm the New York State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business. We are the state's largest small business advocacy organization, representing over 11,000 small and independently owned businesses across New York, including those thousands in the MTA region. We have significant concerns about the chatter and the discussion about raising revenue for the MTA and any possible increase in the MTA payroll tax. Small businesses are already struggling with substantial financial challenges in New York, from rising energy costs to inflation to already some of the highest taxes in the nation and the highest possible unemployment insurance taxes. Small businesses, just plain and simple, don't have any more money to give. And when you increase taxes on small businesses, you could have a multiplier effect on the economy. You're impacting their ability to hire, you're impacting their ability to raise wages, you impact their ability to offer benefits, you impact prices on consumers. And what we've heard time and time again is about addressing the cost of living in New York State. The worst way to address the cost of living in New York State is to increase taxes. So NFIB strongly opposes any sort of increase in the MTA payroll tax, or any tax for that matter. We simply cannot continue to use small businesses as piggy banks. They pay enough, and it has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Also with us we have a member of the Business Council of New York and Business Council of Westchester, so I'll call them both up. We have Ken Pokalski from the Business Council of New York and John Ravitz with the Business Council of Westchester. If you could both come and say a few words.
Thank you, Senator. Ken Pokalski, I'm Vice President of Government Affairs for the Business Council of New York State. We represent 3,500 private sector employers from across New York, including the MTA region. And frankly, we agree with what Leader Ord and Senator Murray have already said, that we can't lead with just tax increases. There needs to be significant review of MTA operations, looking at, focusing on maintenance versus expansion, looking at labor productivity improvements, looking at fare evasion and collection of fares before we go to any consideration of taxes. But let me say three things about the potential for an increase in payroll tax. First, businesses already pay $5.5 billion a year in dedicated taxes to the MTA, including the mobility tax, surcharges on the corporate franchise tax, and others. Overall, there's $8 billion in tax revenues to the MTA, by far the largest revenue source, and almost double the percentage of MTA support that comes from fares. So we need to look at all the other factors that influence MTA expenses. Second, payroll tax is probably the worst, because that's a tax on jobs. That's a tax on wages. Doesn't matter if you're profitable or not, you're paying that. So it's a tax on jobs, and we think that's that's very damaging. And third, you can't look at this payroll tax proposal or any payroll tax proposal in a vacuum. Employers across New York State are looking at a litany of increases on their payroll costs. Record high unemployment insurance taxes at the state and federal levels, increasing workers' compensation claims, ever expanded wage mandates and paid leave mandates. All of these add up significantly to the cost of maintaining jobs and payroll in New York State. The last thing New York State employers need is more costs imposed on payrolls. And with that, I'll turn it over to my good friend John Ravitz from Business Council of Westchester.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Senator Ord, Senator Murray, and members of the Senate Republican Conference. My name is John Ravitz. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for the Business Council of Westchester. We're Westchester County's largest business membership organization, representing over 1,100 businesses. It's been said before, all of us who are working in business membership organizations, we're laser focused on recruiting and retaining businesses. And the only way you can recruit and retain businesses if you give them a level playing field and a sense of assurances that they are not going to be the red-headed stepchild. They are not going to be the one that we continue to put burdens on. And as has already been discussed today, businesses across the state, but certainly in the downstate region, are feeling that every single day. Now look, the MTA does need to improve services. Capital plan for our county and other counties need to be adopted, but it has to be done smartly, it has to be done efficiently, and it has to be done with a sense of confidence and transparency so that people feel that they have a reliable, safe, and affordable transit system. I'm a former legislator from decades past up here. And when I come up here, I realize there's two things I always realize. There are some phrases that never either have been thought of or used. One is unintended consequences. Unintended consequences for something like a payroll tax is just not smart. And that's why I appreciate the senators today continuing to raise this as they go into the final stages of the budget season, that this can't be on the table. I also had one of my political mentors, Rap Rapelier, who was the minority leader of the Assembly when I joined the Assembly. And when we used to have deficits and budgets, he used to say, you know what, we can no longer play the spend and pretend game. Spend money, pretend we have it, and not worry about, again, what the consequences are. Doing something like a payroll tax, again, will send the wrong message to businesses throughout New York State and throughout the country who might be looking at New York. So I applaud the efforts of this conference that they're going to continue to fight that fight, raise their voices, and let their constituents know that they should also speak out. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And as you know, coming to Albany is not the place to go to look for smart. So with that, I will point out one irony before I turn it over to see if we have any questions. First, I'd like to thank all of my colleagues for standing with us, and they are dedicated to fighting against this. The irony is this. We're talking about turning to businesses and reaching into their pockets to get more money to run the MTA. If the MTA were a private business, they'd already be out of business the way they're run.